So I'm just gonna talk about James chapter 1 today, and it's when we are in our trials and when we are in our circumstances that in James chapter 1, 2 to 4 it talks about how we should count it all joy when you fall in various trials, and that we should take charge because whatever we're going through is designing us for something, it's creating us for, and produces patience in us. And so verse 4 says this, but let patience have its perfect work. This is New King James Version. Let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And then in verse 5 says, if any one of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives it to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to you. So number one thing is this. Number 4 is that have patience in his perfect work. So when we are talking about his wisdom, we're talking about in his perfect work. And when we're in his perfect work, we can seek wisdom, and God wants to show that wisdom to us, and he wants to release that wisdom in us without lacking. And so have patience in that work. But in our struggles, in our times that we have, God, within that, he creates endurance and patience that creates ability for wisdom. And so when you look at James chapter 1 verse 4, but let it have patience. Hey Colleen, have patience, and that creates, which has its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. I want to be in that season of lacking nothing. I really am wanting in that season of lacking nothing. And the only thing I can do is be patient with the Lord and say, here I am, God. I'm walking through this no matter what. And I'm going to learn from this, because in that patience, in that complete and lacking, if you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, and who gives it to all liberty without reproach. And and it will be given to him. So basically, when you walk through the presence and you have learned your patience, you have learned your abilities, and you have completed, God gives you wisdom. You just ask him, and he will give you wisdom and direction for the next step of your life, or the next step of what you're doing. Verse 6 says this, but let him ask in faith. So there is a condition attached to the wisdom you're receiving. And sometimes we have to understand wisdom doesn't just come. It comes by fulfilling God's promises. It comes by his faith. And it says, but let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven, tossed by the wind. And I think we see it so many times. I see so many Christians, and I believe that we, including myself, sometimes we just feel like we're tossed back and forth. And I think if we think about it more, it's probably more ourselves than just watching people. We often say, okay, I see Christians, but really you're seeing yourself in it. And I think sometimes we have to look at ourselves and say, am I being tossed back and forth with doubt? Am I being tossed back and forth with doubt? In this season, in this year of the move, am I being tossed back and forth in doubt? And I think we need to get out of that, because it says, God says, I want to give you the wisdom to go with the flow, to go on the waves instead of being tossed back and forth. Instead of staying in the current, I want to get you out in the ocean. And so when we walk in that place of saying, okay, God, if I ask wisdom, so then I need to stop doubting like a wave that went, and we need to somehow get out of the turnt, or out of the what do you call that thing? I think it's a turn, where you just constantly stay in one area, and God wants to move us forward in this way. So he says, verse 7 says, for let not the man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. So he says, if you're going to doubt back and forth, and you're not going to stay mounted, and if you're not going to stay flowing in the presence of God, if you're not going to stay in that faith, don't expect to receive the things you're asking for. And sometimes we ask for the things, but we're not willing to change to get the things we're asking for. And God says it's time to change so you can actually receive the things you're asking for, instead of just staying in the wave bank back and forth. And that's what I feel God is showing me today. He's saying it's time. But in verse 8 it says this, he that is double-minded man is unstable in his ways. And I think we need to get stable again. We need to get stable in his presence. We need to know that he is our God. We need to know that he will do all things for us. We need to know that if we do the possible, he will do the impossible. We need to walk in the presence of that in Jesus' mighty name. So I just want to encourage you today is that, ask for wisdom, but get out of your doubt when you do. Go in that place, and basically what James is saying, you can read it yourself, if James chapter 1, 2 to 5, or 2 to 8, sorry. It actually is talking about the idea of that when you've been through stuff, God is creating patience in you. God's creating an ability in you to go deeper than you ever have. And when you've gone through these things, it's completed, and you start lacking nothing because of what you learned and how you learned how to walk through it. And when you walk through that, you ask for wisdom, and don't go into the doubting mode, but go into the presence of God and say, here I am, God, I need wisdom in my situation today. And God wants to bless us in our situations, and He wants to bless us in the move forward in the presence of God. So be encouraged today. Be encouraged that you can have wisdom to move forward. You can have wisdom in the presence of God to do greater things than you ever have imagined or think. Just don't stay in the current where you can't move forward. Get into the wave so that you flow with the presence of God. Get out of the doubt. Get out of the wavering. And don't be unstable in your way. Start stabilizing yourself in the faith again. Start stabilizing ourselves, saying, God, you are the God you say you are, even though we don't see it. But that's what faith is. Faith is something hoped for, not yet seen. So we got to keep walking in faith because we know it's coming. So be blessed. Your blessing is coming. It is on the way. Bless you guys.